My lovely fellow Tobagonians, today we're going to continue our series of discussions on the pathways to development in Tobago. And we're going to give you a very special treat in this particular session, because what we will do is focus our attention on the creative industries, and we'll clarify what that is as we go along. You'll be able to pick sense from whatever we're saying. And we'll tackle some of the issues with using some of the homegrown expertise that we have built up here in Tobago over a long period of time. We've put together some evidence that we want to share with you first, and then I want to bring my great pal, John Arnold, one of Tobago's foremost experts in this broad area, to share his own skills, both on the production side and on the policy side with you as Tobagonians. This is all part of our effort to clarify for you how Tobago must approach its development process. Now, we've assembled some data I want to share with you first, and then we'll bring John in. We have information from a body of research we've been doing over the last year and a half, indicating that the creative industries in the country, including in Tobago, occupy a very special place in our development prospects. This is the only cluster of industries, what we are calling our creative industries, that create income opportunity by continually striving to innovate and participate in a special form of trade I want to describe this way for you. You're trading with the world, you're exporting to the world. I make a product, I sell it to you, you make a similar product, you sell it to me. And we are competing, and let's see which of these two products would win. We call that intra-industry trade, and music, for example, epitomizes that in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, there are other clusters in the country that could do the same thing, but they do not. And the main reason they don't do it is they are primarily owned and controlled by government. And government, of course, is only concerned with meeting domestic needs, meeting the needs of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So they're not too concerned with exporting anything to the rest of the world, except, of course, it's the kind of ready-done stuff that you have in oil and gas and other things like that. So what you want to know as Tobagonians is that these industries employ a very high share of practitioners. About 20% of the people working in these creative industries, you would be surprised, about 20% of them are people like my good buddy John Arnold with university degrees. And the country is sitting on those as the innovators and creators, and we're not making the best of it. So we want to talk to John a little bit about that kind of data. What you must also know as citizens is that about 29% of all the occupations in the creative industries are what we will call creative occupations. These are simply taking on tasks to come up with new solutions to problems, new music, new ways to make music, and stuff like that. And if you compare that with public administration, the heart of what we call government, only 2.5% of the occupations in public administration are creative. Compare that with 29% in the creative industries, and you begin to see what I mean when I say these are special industries. No other industry cluster in the country, by the way, compares with them on that basis. Now, in addition to that, these creative industries provide a safety net for unskilled workers. Unlike most other industries, when you as an unskilled worker get involved in the creative industries, you get on an income increasing pathway. So this is not like CPEP and URP and make work programs. When you get involved with this high skilled industry, the things you get to do put you on a kind of pathway to growing your income. So they get benefits from the creativity of the industry in that sense. It's a kind of special safety net for unskilled workers. That's one of the reasons this creative set is so special. Now, all of these data that I'm sharing with you indicate that the creative industries provide special development opportunities for the country and for Tobago. Opportunities we should try to pursue, try to exploit. But if you want to exploit them, what you're going to be able to do is grow and diversify your exports. You know, the country is always talking about getting away from oil and gas and so on. These creative industries provide you prime opportunities to do that. Diversify your economy, diversify your exports. Change the way you trade with the world. Focus the way you trade with the world on innovation and creativity, so to say. And there is something else that the ordinary citizen doesn't really look at, but I tend to look at practicing my profession, and that is when you focus on the possibilities created by these creative industries, one of the things you see is that they allow us to increase the efficiency with which we use imports. You have to not forget that we live on imports in Trinidad and Tobago. We are highly import dependent. Almost everything you want to do, even to eat, you need to import a lot of the stuff you're using to do that. And you're very vulnerable to damaging price changes. You see it all the time with oil and gas. For example, we grew up, when I was a little boy, we were living on the cusp of the end of the sugar industry that damaged and destroyed the Tobago economy, but it affected us in cocoa and coconuts and so on. So how do you get away from that? Well, you have to kind of learn how to use imports more and more efficiently over time. And a flagship industry that encourages and helps you to do that would be the set of creative industries. So to exploit those possibilities, you run up against the fundamental question, can we make good policy to do so? Can we turn away from the old pathways that we've followed and put in place proper policies to exploit all of these advantages that these creative industries offer us as Tobagonians and as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So it's against that background that I thought it made sense to continue the conversation about our development pathways by bringing in one of the foremost professionals in the region that we have in this area. That is John Arnold, my fellow Tobagonian. He's a professor and he's a practicing creator, to say nothing of an experienced administrator. We want to reflect on the substance of some of these issues and see what we could extract from John. Let me just say before we even go any further, Tobagonians are not in the habit of documenting properly what their experts have to say. They come and they go. I was just telling John before the start of this discussion that Patrick Arnold was one of the foremost experts in this area. And I don't think Tobago has any records of what he thought, what he said, or even on what he did. So we don't want to continue making that mistake. And I, for one, don't want to do that. So I want to bring John into the conversation. First, John, welcome to this discussion.
Yeah.
We're back, and what we're going to do, as you know, is reflect on the practical substance of both the capacity for creativity in Tobago and the policies needed to encourage us to take advantage of those capacities. But we want to talk to you in your capacity, both as a professor in the creative industry space and as a practicing creator. You know yourself best. You need to tell Tobagonians who you are if we're going to listen to you and believe in what you have to say.
So I want to say that I'm really fortunate and grateful for the fact that I've kind of spanned 3 broad areas: education, culture, tourism. And I've been lucky to have occupied those 3 in terms of experiences throughout my lifetime. What's even more interesting, I think, by the way, this is a very important discussion that we are having. Currently, I used to head, the last job I had in the THA was heading the Tobago Festivals Commission.
That's right.
But currently, I do teach sport tourism and other hospitality courses, as well as business courses at another university.
And you, if I may, I mean, you don't only teach it, you teach in the US as well, no?
Yes.
You still teach in the US, yeah.
And that has really kind of taken up the last 2 years or so of my time. And the last thing I want to say is that I'm finishing the PhD, which I started in 2020. You know, before that I was doing the DBA. And then I had
what you're working on in the PhD? Tell me one time. Tell Tobagonians, because we are proud of our brilliant sons.
It's a PhD in cultural studies, which is looking at a particular sector in context of what I'm doing. The longevity and success of these 6 national choirs. What has made them survive 40 years and more? What are those social and the performative elements that are present? So I've come up with this concept.
What are these choirs? Before you're piquing my interest here. Is any of these choirs from Tobago?
Yes. So
you could tell us at least that secret.
The sample includes Signal Hill and music amateurs.
From Tobago?
From Tobago.
All right.
And we have 4 in Trinidad.
Okay.
Right? That's Lydians, Marionettes, Love Movement, and Southerners. And it's a very interesting study, which we don't have the time to do it. But I've come up with a concept called choral DNA, in that there are 7 core elements that all choirs in Trinidad and Tobago have shown, and the research has shown what these 7 elements are. But we need the time to see.
We need to talk. We need us a whole. But you're not only a master in the creative industries, you are a master administrator. Tell us a little bit about that experience, because people need to believe in your ability to shape good policy.
Yes, and I'm glad you talked about that, because I've been fortunate to have worked on the last cultural policy. I've also been lucky to work on the last tourism policy, right? And both of those documents, and I've actually worked on cultural policy several years ago, when I was invited to be part of a committee when Eugene Job was actually the Minister of Tourism at that point. So I've had that opportunity. I've also worked on the post-COVID creative sector as one of the things to give to the THA at that time, to talk about how we can recover and come out and all that. So I've been able to, you're correct, to be part of some of the policy decisions.
So you'll bring some of that wisdom to bear in the conversation. We could talk about that. I want to ask you to tell Tobagonians a little bit, though, before we get into the heart of the policy conversation, about your, I mean, you know and knew many of the legends in the creative space in Tobago. So give us a little sense of some of those guys you worked firsthand with, you and interacted with, and so on. Remind Tobagonians about our historical record.
Well, I think in context of the people who have kind of stood out, I mean, we know we have the Shadows, we know we have Calypso Rose, who really, to be quite candid, was one of those who really gave us a big brand and a really good big push out on the international market in terms of visibility for Tobago. But you know, people like the younger guys like Positive and they haven't done bad too, although it was in the area of gospel, in terms of branding and getting their music kind of out there. Billy B, I think, Axe Back, all these people have helped. And then you have to go back to the music of people like Little Seven and Jimmy Stewart and
Joey Lewis.
Correct. Correct. Joey Lewis. Correct. And I want to also mention people like Sharon Phillips, who campaigned in Germany and really kind of flew the flag out on that side. And then you had great classical singers like Junior Archer, right? So you have a lot
one of the best ever.
Yeah, one of the best ever.
And your girl there, Linda.
Yeah, you have Lynette.
Lynette Louis.
Yeah,
she's fascinating me when I listen to her sing.
I remember that. So we have had a lot of people that have operated. Now, if you come to ask me, well, boy, John, what was the income generated by these people? I think that's another discussion.
Exactly.
I remember traveling with Shadow to South at the very last performance he did before he passed away, actually. And he was quarreling with, saying, all these young people making $1 million and more, and we who do the work. And I said to him, but Shadow, at this stage in life, you can't be worried about that million. You know what I mean? But I understood what he was saying.
Yeah.
The point he was making is that the guys who operated earlier weren't making the kind of money.
And who invented the base.
And who invented the base. But all the other guys are now feeding off the truck. But I think that has happened in all the cases.
So something is happening in the country with the creative industries in terms of people being able to make a living in it nowadays.
Yes.
And some of the secrets of that ability to make a living is partly what I want to talk to you about, because I want you to reflect with me on an important thing I have observed in the Tobago space. And that is that most of the talents that we have produced in Tobago, you uncovered a lot of them in your show last, I think it was a year ago or so.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, your talent show. You went around the communities of Tobago and uncovered talent spread all around Tobago. But these are amateur talents.
Amateur. Yes.
And the ability to make a living exporting your creative product from Tobago has not been a big part of our community standouts, so to say. There are one or two people like you pointed to who stood out and made a living, but the vast array of talent operates at an amateur level. And I want to ask you whether you think, in the light of your comment that something is happening in Trinidad, are we missing something in Tobago?
Yeah, I want to say, having gone through Children's Showcase for over 13 years, having gone through the last Star Quest, which I thought was a start of something we were going to build. The problem here too is twofold. One, I think policy, strong policy that calls for what I say consistency, right? That whoever is in charge is willing to be consistent. I have this saying called PIC: persistence, insistence, and consistent.
Right.
We need those three things to operate for us to get this thing about the creative sector moving. And I don't only mean in music, right? I would say something that will obviously create real problems. The idea of TPAC, right, the Tobago Performing Arts Company, for me, is a brilliant idea that was not conceived properly. And I can take all the backlash that can come. Because what exactly is TPAC? And I'm saying that one of the things I think we could have done was to develop a real training academy, getting one of the things you and me talk about, competent people to be part of passing the knowledge and the training, that becomes the flow, and you develop that talent. Once you develop the talent, like Sindusha doing it, all those people are going to They have a St. Lucia National School of Music, and they're exporting all these musicians on the cruise ships. Yeah.
Okay.
You understand? Because they realize, hey, this is a way we can get employment for them.
Make a living, yeah.
And they can make a living.
They can make a living.
And they also get opportunities. I know of a guy that started on the cruise ship and ended up in a big play away. You know, somebody spot you, and that happens. So for me, the policy has to be tied now to the training. And once we get that, then we can start talking about how we spend money to export that in the right places, like what South Korea did.
Is there a sense, exactly, I like what you're saying there was South Korea. That was deliberate strategy.
Deliberate.
Is there a sense in which we have to anchor the exploitation of our creative industries on what we can do in the communities? J.D. Elder, one of your own heroes, used to tell me, every blade of grass is an opportunity for creative activity. If you're serious about creativity, but you've got to get it out of the communities in which people live. What is your thought on that?
No, I'm totally in agreement with that. Some years ago, I remember being asked to go and help a group in Lansome. And the problem I was having with the policy people at that point was going in to buy instruments and give them is only an optics exercise. I am more interested in how do we create a training program for the community that tells me in 5 or 10 years I have 12, 20 musicians, 14 singers, you know, people that are developed like that.
But couldn't that be done as community organized enterprise? I mean, communities themselves, properly organized, could fund their own community agendas on this front, just like we could do with sports.
Agreed, but still you will have to have something helping to buttress that by bringing in the right people to do this.
Indeed. But they could hire them. They could pay for them as consultants.
Right.
I mean, I work in Tobago as a consultant all over the world.
Right.
You could find talent wherever you want and bring them into what you're doing.
But I think the community thing is an excellent idea. Actually, one of the dreams I used to have, and you can talk to my choir, was about doing what I call a kind of satellite thing, which was, hey, listen, folks, let's divide into groups. And I had called it feeding the fire. So what we're doing is, I'm splitting it all up. We're doing the training, the same thing I was telling you about the exercise in Chicago, and we're going to go into communities. We're going to pick 5, 6 pilot villages, and we're going in and saying, this is what we want to do with you. Boom. Right? And then we bring all of them together, right? In that kind of way that they have purpose. We bring them to the central facility, which would be like Shaw Park Complex, and we feature in all the communities, separate, and then we do joint things.
With the results of the training program.
The training and what have you program.
Financing
but it
program.
calls for policy, support with funding, and consistency. But I never got, and this, I carry this way back to the late St. Alfred days. I have all those things on my computer.
But JD used to say to me, they in the communities have to own it.
Yes.
It was the pride of the community that he said to me, you have to rely on to keep these things going. What do you make of that?
Well, you know,
in other words, let me tell you what JD used to boast about. He said, he used to tell me about the cantatas when he was young.
Right.
When you have a shootout between Charlottesville and Belgrade, who could outsing who, and so on. And he used to point out to me, although it wasn't just about culture, he used to say, remember how Charlottesville team used to be proud of going in tongue and beat them tongue team? What about that?
No, I'm in total sync with that. But I want to make this point. When we were opening the Buku integrated facility, I, along with another colleague, Elvis Ratman, I think, we said we're going in free. We're going in free. And we formed a choir for the opening. Only of Buku people, and we did the same thing with dance, and they all performed at that opening.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But my plan was for that to be consistent and sustainable.
Right.
But here's the problem. When the villagers now started to look and say, well, boy, we start off good with this, but we now have to talk about how we continue it. When they started to look for others, you know what villagers were telling them? How much we getting paid?
Yeah.
Now,
Very reasonable to me when they begin to ask questions about money.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is, we even start to talk about the passion for the training,
Right.
the purpose.
Right,
The
right.
fact is, we were thinking along the lines of, we want to reinvigorate the village to start back the folk theater, the
Right.
Buku folk theater.
Right, right.
It never worked because people like me, when he came in to start, I want to get things going. But you're right, the community
Has
itself
to own,
has to own it and move it.
and look out for ways in which they could make money for
Correct.
themselves and for their fellow
Correct.
citizens. That sort of thing. That's what JD told me about as a great anthropologist. You know. He said, look, the community has to own it, want it, and want to make a living from it.
Yeah, yeah. But you tell me, Vanus, how do we move the psychographics for the villagers, the community, to say, hey, we're gonna go through a little rough patch, but we really want to see this off.
Yeah, well, I agree with JD. They are the own it. It's they who have to.
Yep.
They who the fire to be in is in the community's belly.
Correct.
It's they who then have to deal with all these rough patches and so on. There's
Right.
failure, there's success all over the
Correct.
world, and you in your community say, for Charlottesville to become the greatest village, this is what we have
Yes.
to do.
Yes.
Through thick and thin.
Yeah.
That was JD's point, and I've never found any evidence yet that he's wrong. So I thought I would ask a man like you. Listen, let me push on with
Yeah, man, go
some
ahead.
of the things that we need to cover here. We have some data that we have looked at, John, that would tell us where Tobago sits in the country. We're gathering all of that data, and I've collected figures for 3 of the indicators, and I want to just ask for your opinions on them. Tobago is 6th among the 15 administrative districts of the country in terms of average income, right? Monthly
Right.
income, wage income. So we're getting benefits transfers from Trinidad, and we're living on that, and we're 6th in the ranking after Tacarigua and St. George's and
Okay.
San Fernando and so on.
Out of 6
6 out of 15.
Right.
But when you look at the share of workers with university degrees, Tobago is 12th out of 15, meaning at the bottom.
Oh, that's at the bottom.
And when you look at the taste for entrepreneurship and innovation, Tobago is last.
We last.
Now, intuitively as a Tobagonian, that's not acceptable to me.
That's hard. Yeah,
that's hard to swallow, but
Yeah.
you're facing the evidence. Doesn't that tell you that we have to perk up and get our act together? How does that square with your experience?
Yeah, that's, I mean, this data, I mean, that you've just pointed out. 15th in the area of entrepreneurship. That's
It tells
kind
you dependencies in the air.
dependency is a problem, yeah. And innovation. Again, I'm going back to this idea, Vanus, that we have to create policy that allows for serious implementation. And you know, I told you about this before. This thing about the problem we have is we have all the plans. Implementation deficit disorder is what Keatner says we're suffering with. We're not able to move the needle by saying, hey, we seriously want to do this. Forget the optics.
Get down to work.
Get down to the work. I think a lot of what we need to do to get past this thing here, because this is frightening, that we are last in when you look at all the clusters in the country.
In terms of entrepreneurship.
Especially entrepreneurship. I would have thought that Tobagonians are a little more on the creative side.
Well, when I was a little boy, I remember what we used to have was a managed society in the sense that everybody was a small farmer and this and so you lived as an entrepreneur.
Right.
But I guess what we have seen in the recent decades is everybody is employed in in some sort of public sector mode. You remember the government in Tobago employs about 70% of the Tobago.
Correct.
So that's
we
where
talked about that before.
That's where this came from.
Yes.
Too much dependency on the state.
Yes. So that needs to be addressed.
You have to deal with that.
Yes,
Strengthening your private sector, as it were,
correct,
is a broad way to put it. But it's about encouraging people to become entrepreneurs and innovators, which is what the creative industries are all about.
Yes. And I would tell you one time that if we're going to talk the creative industry moving, because I think that that's a sector on its own, but it's not a supportive or collaborative system. And I think that's a serious problem, because this study that I'm doing now, one of the things that's coming out is choirs are learning how to collaborate with each other. How do you accept a Tobago choir director coming into your space to direct and arrange, and that calls for the kind of collaborative thinking, co-creative thinking, which has to be in the space to help us with that same entrepreneurship story.
Well, I want to tie that to the next question I have for you, which goes to your experience with Signal Hill, with the choir. Because in a kind of way, a big question comes up. But how do you fund something like that, right? I mean, you want to make money with it, you got to be doing investment, you got to be generating revenues and covering costs and so on. And that raises the fundamental question of the business orientation of the creators in the Tobago space. You had first-hand experience with Signal Hill. So how do you fund these things in a Tobago? I mean, what are the options people have, and what are the options you think we should be thinking about? Sweat equity is one of the old-fashioned volunteerism kind of thing. You have the friends and your community, those who would normally pitch in. You borrow a little thing from your partners here and there. But how do you make something like a Signal Hill choir into a feasible money-making thing for the singers in the operation?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because one of the serious questions currently is, we are a non-profit organization, right? We are actually a limited liability company, right? And we registered, we pay our annual returns, what have you. But one of the things that came the other day, what we had to think, because we were to travel to South Africa last year, but we had to still wait on funds from the sport and cultural and the THA. Because no matter how much funds you raise, you can't raise that volume of funds. So there's a program called Entertainment Economy, that a new podcast that has started. And I'm now putting together some data for Signal Hill on that. How much money you guys made in the last 8-10 years? I'm now looking at that. And you realize, yes, we got funds from record sales. In those days, CD sales, record sales. In earlier days was cassette. You get money from live performances, right? You get money from your fundraising, subscriptions from members. Your fundraisers could be all kinds of stuff, from raffles to breakfast. But that one is good sweat story. But most of the funding has come from the state, either through the NLCB Sport and Cultural Fund, corporate sponsors, right? We've had good corporate sponsors in the past. That has vanished now in the last 3 years. And then the THA has also been a big contributor to that. So what I'm saying is that, but there was always a feeling when we go out. I remember going out to a show called Nathaniel Det, and this was a sold-out show, and we were the guest artists for the show. People could even get tickets. They should have seen it outside. And we actually, the THA worked with 2 tourism buses, and they set up the booth, and they were able to engage people to understand where is Tobago, how does it fit into Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, right? And we were able in that show to not just say, hey, there's a great performing group coming and we all like that, but also put it in context of a destination. So my point is that...
So they're paying you advertising revenues, as it were.
Correct. So the thing is, we raise the funds, but where does the fund go? All our funds go back into uniforms, right? Travel. So I want to tell you,
You can't pay the artists as professionals.
Right, I comment.
Yeah.
So one time we tried a model where we were performing in several hotels, and we used to take all the money, and we used to say 30% goes to the central fund, which is the choir fund. We take the next 70 and we pay members. But you know how much members used to get? Because your member is a lot of folks. Sometimes you have 17, sometimes you have 20, sometimes you have 15.
Okay.
By the time you divide that money by performances, people only used to get maybe 90, 120, you know? So the funds really, the members then say, man, this ain't making sense. Put the money, so we'll put all the money for travel.
So let me ask you, I mean, from that experience, what do we need to have for this to be a viable money-making outfit that could pay its members as professionals? Is it more international gigs? What do we have? I mean, this is a serious question if we're going to look down the road.
I'm with you.
How are we going to approach this business of making money so you could pay the professionals to devote their time to innovation and music creation?
Remember when I had sent the document to you, there were 3 areas, there were 3 points I had made in the creative export and market development policy. One was, we need support for access to markets, we need branding support, and we need distribution support.
And from your experience with the choir, you could see that.
I can say. We talked earlier about the South Korea thing, but that was what South Korea did. They
Absolutely.
put to supporting all the artists, food, culinary, film, music, the Hallyu effect, but they had a 10 to 15-year plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Which they never moved from it.
From my work in WIPO,
Correct.
That is true. It was a deliberate. K-pop is a deliberate national investment strategy, and most people don't know.
And look at what it has done.
Look at what it has done for them.
The BTS winning Grammy.
Is it beyond Tobago's reach to
It's not. I'm passionate about that.
It can be done.
Yes,
and your experience with the choir allows you to identify the various things that we could do to make this into a successful Tobago pop.
Yeah, and why I'm even saying that is, I don't know how much support, for example, somebody like Sharon Philip, who was singing with orchestras in Germany. What was the support for such a person? And then we lose a lot of people. Nicole Crooks went to, she had the first scholarship, music scholarship, right? She had the first music scholarship. And she went away, but she never came back. Never came back to help or to contribute in the space. But again, was there support in the market to make sure that that girl identified for Tobago? Like I like what Barbados is doing with Rihanna. You follow what I'm saying? We need to do the same thing here.
And can.
And we can. Right?
Well, I want to ask you, I mean, you used to be not just the leader of the choir, but you used to be an administrator and so on. And I know, I don't want to ask it in the self-interested sense, because if you're the leader of the choir, you have to be careful with public administrative conflicts of interest and so on. But this kind of thinking that you are uncovering here, do you see any hope that would filter into the policy space of the country and of Tobago anytime soon?
Well,
You understand the question?
well, I will be an eternal optimist on this one.
Yeah.
In that I really feel, you're saying something, Vanus, we can do it.
It can be done.
It can be done. We have a lot of talented people in Tobago, and it hurts me all the time, right? That these talented people can't move beyond here. And why don't they move beyond here? Because there's nothing driving them in the support sector.
I want to come back. I want to tell you, before I go on with the other question. Every time I go to a funeral in Tobago, I come out at the funeral and feel to pick up the phone and call him. I said, John, it's only in funeral you to see international talent in Tobago. Yeah. Because we seen them out there we're making money.
Yes.
With this, every time you go to a funeral, you have to come out and say, but what are we doing with this talent?
I have suggested to more than once that there are people we can take them, send them to Berkeley as an investment that will help us in branding later, will help us in training if you want, but more than that, it will give us the visibility. We're talking about the greatest little island on the planet, but that doesn't happen overnight. That is something you have to do the same work like South Korea, right? We are going to pay to have our people go out there and spread the news of the kind of music you are doing, right? And the work you are doing, right? And also the talent that can make it.
And I want to remind you, I know you know, but this whole K-pop thing is a whole big industry.
Oh, yeah.
Not just the music and the dance,
The whole thing comes with
fashion and
everything.
Everything mixed up with it. Let me push on and ask you another question. Now, how do you, in the modern day, how do you grapple? I've been watching it. I've been asking questions among my colleagues, my professional colleagues, about how do you grapple with the emergence of machine learning and artificial intelligence as sources of information and information creation and therefore innovation. How do you, operating as a choir in a place like Tobago, or as a professional in a place, how do you grapple with this?
Right, so I wouldn't even say
issue.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say as a choir, I just say because it's an area that I'm really looking at now.
Yes.
You now have a situation where AI, we don't need middlemen, right? So the whole area of copyright has changed, right? People are now doing AI license, right? Where I can make a song AI and I get it licensed by Sony, by Warner Brothers, whoever. The problem is that there's a lot of dilution now because there's so much artificial thing coming in. You also have artificial intelligence stations where the only music that's there is that. Now, there's a good in that. Vanus, we now don't need the mixing engineers, we don't need the mastering engineers, because you know the story. We go to the studio, we make the master, we make the tapes, we get a mixing engineer to give us that mix, then we carry it to the mastering guy who then puts it to make it radio friendly and radio ready and consumer, right, ready. We don't need that anymore.
Right.
I can now sit, do my own thing, my own computer, get my programs. It could be a small home thing, and I now have access through AI to make a final product.
But if you are innovative and creative, you put AI to work.
Right. So those people is a new set of millionaires are going to be coming up.
So to put Tobago in that space, you have to come right back to what you were saying earlier about the training. And you have to double down on the training in all the areas of the creative industry.
And if we're serious, we'll put a recording studio in Tobago, which I've been saying for donkey years, that says we are serious about Tobago artists being international. And now that we have AI as a tool, now we can make magic. Now we could talk about the greatest little island on the planet. Well, because you're putting the work to get that to happen.
And when you say we, when I was a young professional in the creative industry space, I was sent to Cuba by UNCTAD and WIPO. This is in 2000 somewhere there. And I counted one of the UNCTAD professionals who went with me. We toured Havana. In Havana alone, 5 studios up and down in Havana, publicly funded studios, to where Buena Vista Social Club and all them people so come from.
Vanus, what about in the hotel? You in the hotel, is about 5 bands coming in one after the other. I travel on a bus, and the driver, we brought us to the hotel, and he came off the bus and a piece of salsa, and just took a lady off the street. And I say, well, how you learn? He said, well, everybody know. It's part of the fabric of the culture.
One of the things I observed, it goes to the heart of your point about training. We found out in 2000 in Cuba, in the hotel we were staying, that the band that was playing, all of them are master's degrees in.
Yes. Yes.
They can't perform.
Yes.
They couldn't be in the dance troupe or anything unless you have gone to school and come out with your masters and whatnot.
And that applies in all the areas.
And that applies
right up
all of them.
The whole world.
So when you say that we have to double down on the training, that's the direction in which you're going if you want to put AI to work. To cope in the modern environment, because AI could replicate and produce almost anything, and it's so as good as anything you would produce if you're not careful enough. So you're competing against the global technology there, and the only solution you are really saying is educate and train, so you could come up with your own innovative tools and use AI and them to support what you're trying to do.
And it wouldn't affect live music at all. Live music will always be there.
Live music is good. You can't go and put on a live concert with AI. So live music. So you have that source.
You always have that source.
The touring and all the things that go with that.
Festivals, everything. Those are going to be there.
Besides studios, though, I wanted to ask you about 2 other things that we observed in that experience, in that body of work: communications infrastructure, and nowadays the digital infrastructure, the digital capacity. Between, when you talk about the need for the public studios, as it were, you're also talking about strengthening our communications infrastructure as part of the public investment to drive this industry.
Of course.
And the digital aspects of that.
Yeah. So once again, for me, I can't say AI without saying the digital infrastructure also.
Right.
For me, all of it has to be part of driving the process. You said something earlier that I think the fact that we make it easier, and we have to be able to use the tools. It's a tool.
It's a tool.
It's just a good tool. And we were all scared when the internet came. We were all scared when cellular phone came. People had all kinds of fears. And the same thing is happening with AI. My only thing is that I got scared when I realized that a lot of people, Vanus, will not want to do the hard work of learning to play the guitar, learning to play the piano, right?
You're worried that AI will discourage that?
Yes, because we can now, you can now go basic and you can still sound professional.
Right.
Because AI will do the rest.
So what's the advantage in the modern day then of continuing with the mastery you acquired when you went to university? The live. That's the motivation. You don't make the money so much on the AI driven product as much as you make it in live performance.
People are still affected.
And you could integrate that into the tourism. That's part of your point, community tourism especially.
We have several links. Community tourism, destination tourism, right, where we purposefully going to send out our best artists with funds that going to do the same 3 things I told you here: access to markets, branding support, distribution.
May I ask you one more thing, and then leave it up to you to wrap up this story for Tobagonians.
Yeah, we need plenty time, boy.
You must answer this question because you were Festivals Commission leader. What about the carnival and heritage industries in Tobago? How do we put them? In Trinidad, they are a big anchor for the opening, you say, the artists in Trinidad have found. We saw it emerging.
And carnivals, and the diaspora, all over the world.
Exactly, right. What about those industries? What can we do in Tobago so that we don't approach the carnivals by simply importing a band from Trinidad every year? What do we have to do? How do we anchor the Tobago's contribution to our annual festival?
Well, I think to be quite candid, there were some mistakes along the way in terms of the first carnival, if you remember. There was an attempt not to deal with Trinidad.
Right.
The attempt was to deal with Grenada.
Right. When the Oktoberfest was first brought
this carnival, yeah.
This wrong
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But by the second year, they recognized that you can't really talk carnival without Trinidad.
Yeah.
First, it's not smart because really and truly, the mother carnival is really Trinidad.
And the biggest fetters.
And there's a whole different psychographic there. And thirdly, because you're so close to Trinidad and you're part of the nation, that's not a smart thing to do.
That's a low-hanging
fruit. So for me, I thought the attempt was to develop something that was Tobago, for want of a better word, Tobago-esque. And there were several things with that. You know, the fact that I've heard theories about the fact that we have carnival along on a strip that brings you real close to the sea. And you know, that's a kind of therapeutic value there. But I think there's still work to be done even after 5 years. What exactly we want the brand to be. And I think something that says, if I'm going to make the choice between Tobago Carnival and Miami, what is going to tell me, now go Tobago? So I think, I'm not too sure we have gotten that yet.
To blend that brand properly.
So I think we need to work on creating that differentiation that gives us our own USP in terms of what is this thing we want to sell that says Tobago Carnival is this, is release, is revelry, but it's not just the same thing. But I think we are in a funny place where it may be looking like a repeat of the carnival we know. And so that puts you into more competition because, you know, competing against, you know. So I'm still waiting to see where it goes. I think it has great potential. But I think we also have to be aware of our carrying capacity in terms of our hotel stock, room stock, right? Our roads, how many cars, how many taxis we can take, you know. I always go back to the John Legend here. People in traffic for 4 hours, they never got to the show. We had too many people on the island, right? So we have a carrying capacity.
But there are questions that will come up that will follow up on these comments you're making that have to do with the way our communities are integrated into this whole big business of a set of Tobago festival.
Correct.
But I want to
who are the beneficiaries?
Not ask you that. As much as I want to say, given all the things you said, and keeping the carnival in the back of your head, what are the priority policies that you are urged to mention to Tobagonians as an expert in administration and as an expert in the creative industries, as a practitioner and a professor? What are the main policy strokes you think Tobago should be looking to hit if we want to really succeed in opening up our
So I want to go back to my doc. I think the first one is creating a firm creative business policy. A firm one that everybody believes in.
What you were telling me about 6 months ago is a creative industries development plan.
Correct.
Substantially that.
Correct. Same. The second one is that we have to look at how we can, the same thing I've been talking about, the creative export and market development. But before we do that, we have to deal with the talent development.
You have to anchor everything on the training.
Create the training.
That's the second major dimension in training.
If we get that, then we can talk about how we market. Because that will then tie into how we're going to utilize the airport down the road. How we're going to deal with airlift that comes. They come into what? You want to promote the destination, we have to have things that tag on to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I am saying, I believe in it, Vanus. I think Tobago has a plethora of talent that just, they end up by the side, by the roadside.
But how are we going to get this, let me call it a kind of Korean style creative industry development program in place?
Political will.
It's
Political.
It's the politics.
Yeah. I mean, that's the space we operate. Yeah. The political will to say, hey, you know what? I believe this can be the platform to move Tobago.
May I point out, as a professional in the field, that political will that you're talking about has to be embedded in the population all over the place. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's Tobagonians who have to want to extract the benefits of an industry like this.
Correct.
Rather than just rely primarily on government.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah?
I agree with you on that. You said it earlier, you know. Yeah. The fire comes from the...
That's the JE thesis. Indeed. That's a good point on which we could thank you for such a wonderful, free-flowing discussion about where Tobago could go with the creative industry.
I enjoyed this.
I enjoyed this. And, we must do this again. You
so much.
You are a professor of sports policy and tourism policy. We have a whole body of data on that whole area. So one of these days we bring you back on that.
Yeah.
All right. That's a deal. Thanks a lot for coming through, John.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that.
Tobago must listen to its scholars. No, sir?
Well, I think so. That's why they train us.
Absolutely. All right, good, fantastic.
You know?
Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, man.